a world drowning in noise, where truth is often buried beneath layers of propaganda and misinformation, there's a need for a different kind of a network of creators that cuts through the clutter, that doesn't shy away from tough topics, and that delivers the unfiltered truth. We are Trim Radio Network. We are creators, we are innovators, we are investigators. We're the ones who aren't afraid to call a spade a spade. If you're ready to participate in thought-provoking discussions, informational topics, and of course today's biggest headlines, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. We're Trim Radio Network. We're cutting the bull and serving the truth.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, 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 take the red. You stay in Wonderland. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Now, from the northeast quadrant of the United States, it's the Red Pill Reality Show with your host, Riscalla. Saturday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the Trim Radio Network. You can join the conversation in any of our chat rooms. And now, without further ado, your host, Riscalla.
Hello and welcome. My goodness. You know, it amazes me. I don't know why it did that. Let's try it again. Maybe if I reset, there we go. Hot dog. I love it when a plan comes together. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you guys. Thank you for taking the time to let me share with you tonight. I'm going to have a guest on with me that very interesting. We're going to see about some of the things we might be able to do to help defend ourselves against some of these people we call our public servants. And then also on top of that, training some of these, educating maybe a better way to put it, some of these public servants, and so they understand the responsibilities that they have in the offices that they hold. So I'll have him on shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little bit of a yakking. For those of you who may have or may not have heard, we have a total of 4 people that have been shot, assassination-wise, it looks like. All Democrats, senators, representatives. From what last thing I saw, 2 were dead. I don't know if of the 4, maybe 3 are dead now. 1 was in very serious condition. There's all kinds of speculation going on. I watched a video earlier, and the young man that was giving his idea of some of what may be going on brought up a very valid point. Now, those of us who are paying attention know that over the last 4 years, we've had a minimum of 10 million, but the real number is more than likely 20 or possibly even more than 20 million. But we'll go with the indisputed amount right now, which they figure is 10 million. So of those 10 million, it is speculated that at least half of them are a criminal element of some sort. So if it's 10 million, which we know is underinflated, and 5 million is half of that, can you imagine that there are 5 million criminals, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, human traffickers, pedophiles. 5 million. I think it's a lot more than that, but the reason I bring this up is there are people who are freaking out about this ICE deportation system. President Trump, long before any of this started, came out in the open and he said many times, I'm going to have the largest deportation in the history of the country. We're going to have the largest deportation in the history of the country, over and over. This is not a surprise. So as he is carrying this out, understanding that we have a minimum of 5 million criminals from all over. The one report that I read said that Venezuela let all of their prisoners go, no matter what the crime, under the pretense that they are going to America and they will not come back. Now, I have to say that I have supported Trump every time he's run. The first time around, when I first heard about him running, I said, "Oh, he's a drama king, right? Oh, you're fired." And I don't watch TV, but you'd have to sleep under a rock to not know the name. And when I heard he was running, I went, "Oh, great! He's running just for the publicity of it." Oh, you see, now I had my own show, and then I ran for president, and Then when I saw he was serious, I said, "Holy smokes!" So I've supported him all the way. But I have to say honestly, I'm not very happy with some of the things that he has chosen to do. He says support Israel no matter what. Those are my words, but that's basically the idea. Support Israel no matter what. It doesn't matter. We're going to support Israel. Israel is a nuclear power. I don't know how many people realize that. And if they decide that they want to go pedal to the metal with Iran, guess who gets sucked into that? And it looks like it's stacking up that way. They attacked Iran a couple of nights ago, killed a bunch of the leaders. Iran now pissed off. They're gonna fire back, and it escalates from there. Meanwhile, Trump is saying, "Well, I'm trying to resolve this. Iran, you need to talk to me. You don't know what's coming," and blah 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 blah. We should not be involved. I don't. Maybe speaking out of turn. We should not be involved with Israel because I don't think Israel is our friend. There was an action that happened 1940 something, I think it was. You can look it up. It's still available. The USS Liberty. This was one of our intelligence ships that was in international waters, attacked by Israeli jets, attempted to be sunk. There were all kinds of excuses. But the reality of it is they were attempting a false flag, and they were going to blame it on the Egyptians so that the United States would go after the Egyptians. They did all kinds of things to the ship. They did everything they possibly could to sink the ship so that they could blame it on the Egyptians. The ship didn't sink. When it made it back to the United States, 34 of the sailors had died, and the rest were forced to take an oath to never mention this publicly, and Israel never apologized. So Israel is not our friend. Israel is nobody's friend, if you really want to know the truth. Their best friend is themselves. So now, if you can imagine, we got this guy who he's pumped up, he's ready to go, right? And he's got these big guys behind him. He's got these big muscles behind him. He's going to go around and he's going to pick a fight with this other guy because this has been going on for a while and he wants to settle it once and for all. So he picks a fight with this other guy who's not a small guy. He's bigger than he is, but he's not a really big guy either. And if he starts yelling, help, hey, the big guy that's behind him, the big brutal guy, hey, he jumps in. What incentive is there for Israel not to go to war? They have the United States and the allies backing them. There's no incentive. This is sick. This is what we have to deal with in this world today. That these people will go to war for various reasons, one of which is to make a lot of money, but various reasons. It's just not about money anymore. Power, being able to jockey yourself in the geopolitical positioning that you want. And I'm not a fan of Iran either, don't get me wrong. People say Iran, well, Iran says, well, death to America, death to Israel, cut the head of the snake, blah, 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 blah. If you were living in Iran and you realized that the United States continued to meddle in your political arena repeatedly, they installed the Shah of Iran. I doubt people even remember the guy. The Shah of Iran ran it with a strict right hand. Hardly anybody got away with anything. And then I guess there was a misunderstanding, or there was a falling away or something, and the Shah of Iran was removed. He was overthrown, and so he was removed. Brought to the United States, living a luxurious life over here, all paid for by us. And then the Ayatollah stepped in. That's when we had the all of the prisoners that they took prisoners from the embassy. Jimmy Carter tiptoed around the whole thing, then tried to save them by sending helicopters in there, which died out from the desert dust. They couldn't handle it. The whole thing was a fiasco. So now we're looking at a new war. And this one will probably be a lot bigger than ones that we've been in quite a while. Israel will attack Iran. Iran will attack Israel. Russia backing Iran. Now we have to back Israel. Guess what? China's going to jump in. Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm not real happy about how we seem to be in a position to be dragged into this thing. I'm not real happy about the idea that he said, that Trump said, well, we're going to own Gaza. I don't want to own Gaza. We're going to make it a paradise. What about the people that were trying to live there, that have their houses are pretty much demolished? Where are they going to go? What about the real criminals? How come we're not seeing the real criminals? I expected that when this happened, that when Trump got elected, and maybe I'm expecting too much. I mean, I know I've said this several times and it's redundant, but I'm telling you, I expected to see some heads roll. People like Michael Strzok, Lisa Page, Comey, Mueller, Schumer, people who have openly committed treason. Biden. The precedent's already been set. They already raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, so we can go do it to Biden. It's already been set. And we need to do it to Obama. We need to do it to Bush. They're all guilty of treason. And I had one guy tell me, oh, well, they executed, I don't remember which one. Trump recently said that Joe Biden was executed in 2020, and it was a double that we've been dealing with. Okay, well, let's just say, for argument's sake, let's say that they did do that. They executed him for treason. John, can't think of his last name. Let's say they executed him for treason. So here you have a bad guy, and you do away with the bad guy, but we have another guy that looks like the bad guy that's doing the same thing the bad guy was doing, that you killed the bad guy for. Does it make any sense to anybody? And one guy told me, oh, well, you see, if people really knew, they'd freak out. What are they going to freak out about? If anybody has any neurons firing upstairs and they know that somebody committed treason and they were tried, and see, here's the thing now, if you commit treason, you're not tried in civil, you're not tried in criminal, you're not tried in federal. You're in a military tribunal, and buddy, they don't fool around. They get down to business real quick. So it amazes me that people can't understand. Somebody's calling me already. It amazes me that people can't understand that if we decide to prosecute these people for treason, that it's not going to be civil, federal, state, none of that stuff. It's going to be military. And I don't understand why it hasn't happened already. I really believe that when Trump came into office, he was going to say, look, you know, the evidence is out there. Evidence is openly out there. It's not like we have to make anything up, for Pete's sake. The evidence is available to anybody. Go on YouTube and start watching some of the videos of, I think his name is Comer. Comer's one of them. That's the one that comes to mind right now. There were 3 or 4 of them that have testified and put on the record that the Biden family has received millions of dollars from adversarial people while he is in office. The same, whoever that guy is that they call Biden, the same person withdrew all of our troops from Afghanistan and left behind billions of dollars of our latest equipment working. That is the definition of aiding and abetting your enemy, which is the definition of treason. But I don't see anything happening. We have senators who are openly against our government. They're outright up. These guys use our money to go to El Salvador to speak to a man down there who they called a Maryland father, Maryland dad, or whatever. Like this guy is some kind of innocent sheep, and that we have, out of the cruelness of America, we have decided to go and prosecute this guy and kick him out of our country for no reason. Idiot goes down there and has a drink with the guy. So now we're forced to bring this guy back. And now they're spitting nails again because he's going to get prosecuted. Oh, he's just an innocent man. Like hell. The mentality that is happening in areas of this country is truly concerning. I can't find words to describe. What you think what's going on in California, for example? Where do you think this is going to lead up to? We've already got, we had the National Guard, we had the police first, and police really didn't want to do anything about it because they were ordered not to. So we had the National Guard moved in. National Guard got surrounded. So we had, now we have the military moving in. These people are, many of them are paid provocateurs. I hope you know that. They're being paid to do what they do. Some of them as much as $1,000 a day. And they'll get paid more if they get arrested. Who's backing all of this? Who has that kind of money? A black pickup truck pulls up, starts handing out these very elaborate face masks. I come to find out that the face masks are value anywhere between $50 and $65 a pop. They're handing them out right, left, and center like it's water. Who had that money? Where did that come from? Why aren't they looking at the manufacturer of these masks and finding out who the distributors are and find out who bought a whole bunch of these things recently? And prosecute. So there's some things that are happening with the president that I'm not really happy about. I don't like this idea of collecting personal information on everybody around the country and putting it in one central location. I had my friend argue with me, well, it already exists, Riscalla. What's the problem? Yes, it already exists. I'm not doubting that, but here's the thing. It already exists in a multitude of systems. So they can't, if they want to find out if you said something bad on social media, for example, they have to go and look in a variety of areas to find out who you are, where you live, all your personal info. However, once this goes through, all they have to do is go to one spot, one central location, and all of your information is there, everything. Your medical, if you have a criminal, your criminal, everything. There's nothing that's left out. Your bank, everything. Now, I don't think that they're doing this, that Trump is doing this for nefarious reasons. But what happens when the next creep gets into office? What happens when we get another Biden or another Obama? Now they have this information and the access to it at their fingertips. What's to stop them from installing a social credit system like they have in China? So if you're living in China, you're somebody like me, can't keep his mouth shut, and you make a statement that the government doesn't like. Now, depending upon how serious the statement is and how much they don't like what it is, but if it's something that's, we'll consider light, it's a light statement, it's really nothing like, go shoot somebody or, rebel or, anything like that. It's something light, I don't like what they did here or something. So they have options that they can do to you. Number one, they can fine you. And you don't have to worry about sending in the fine. You don't have to worry about giving them your credit card or any of that. They'll just go right into your bank account and take whatever they want. And on top of that, they have facial recognition everywhere. So let's say that, you paid your fine. I need to go get some milk. I'm going to pick up some groceries. You try to walk in the grocery store. It's got facial recognition on the door. The door won't open for you. So you play sneaky and you sneak in behind somebody. Now you're walking through the grocery store and you're picking out this and that and the other. You go to the frozen foods or one of the frozen areas where you have the door that have to open up. The door won't open because why? It has facial recognition on it. So you decide you're going to have to just settle for what you got, and you go to check out, and guess what happens? You can't check out because the cashiers have facial recognition on them. And if you think that I'm kidding, that this is not going to happen here, it's already happening in the sense that the base system is being set up. I go to a grocery store where I live, and when I go to check out, it checks me. It knows who I am. And if I don't scan something, if I leave something in the cart or something like that and try to leave, it rings off a bell. It knows, hey, wait a minute, you didn't ring that up. So the system is already in place in many places. And now they're going to gather all this information, put it all together, and people like me will probably never be able to go to a store or any commercial area again because I won't keep my mouth shut. I've had too many of my friends disappear. I have friends that died in Vietnam. I have friends that came back from Vietnam. They weren't the same. And I thank God every day that my orders to Vietnam were redlined 2 weeks from going there. War after war after war. The short period that we had, Donald Trump's first go-around, the first period, the first period in, 60 some odd years, 50 or 60 some odd years that we didn't have any wars. And I was expecting that in the second go-around, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like he'll be pushed into it. Because if Israel feels their oats and decides that, hey, it's not enough that we killed these Iranians, we need more. then we'll be sucked into it, just like a vacuum cleaner. And the next thing you know, our troops will be over there fighting. I don't want that. That's none of our business. And I really don't like the idea of backing Israel no matter what. I see the posts, back Israel, love Israel, blah, 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 blah. If people truly understood how evil the government is in Israel, our government is evil. I mean, anybody who has any idea what's going on knows that our government is not our friend. They know that our government has done some very sick, evil things, right? Well, where do you think they learned that from? When you look at forgive me, I don't mean that, I apologize. When you look at the Israeli government, they're the ones who taught our government to be such corrupted political parasites. So I don't understand why we keep giving them money. And we continue to give Ukraine money. That's another thing that I'm upset about. We already know that the money going to Ukraine is being is fraudulent. It's not being spent on what's supposed to be spent on. Some of it comes back here to these parasitic politicians that we have that skim off some of the money every time they send them some money. So there's just some things that are happening I'm not very happy with. I really expected a different scenario by now. We're a little over 100 days. And I still don't see the real criminals being prosecuted, even chased. We had Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in an interview saying that Epstein did not kill himself. Now, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because what they said was they didn't say that they believed. Well, let me back up a minute. I'm trying to remember how they worded it. What they said was the records show that Epstein killed himself. We read the records, we saw the records, and the records show he killed himself. And they have some video that supposedly shows that he was the only one around. Sorry, I don't believe it. Now, they may be telling you the truth, that the records that they read, that they went through, show that he killed himself. But I don't believe he killed him. I don't think he's dead. I don't know if the pictures are still available from the body being taken away, but you clearly see that the body, that the pictures of the body, of the headshots specifically, it's not the same guy. So I don't think he's dead. And then there's various reports that pop up now and then. There's one video I saw about a week ago. They think now he's in Israel. It wouldn't surprise me because I believe he was a Mossad agent. He worked for the CIA, worked for the Mossad. He had power over the most powerful people. Can you imagine somebody having power over the Clintons and being alive? That's pretty powerful, pal. This guy was able to manipulate the Clintons. And if he didn't have something that was so dreadfully strong, he'd have committed suicide a long time ago. So, yeah, I think he was working for Mossad. I think he worked for CIA, some intelligence agencies of some sort, constantly blackmailing people, getting the goods on them so that they can get them in a situation where, okay, listen, this is what you're going to do, or this is what you're going to vote on, or this is what you're going to finance, or whatever, to be able to have power and manipulate people. And I don't think he killed himself at all. Someone else told me, oh, yeah, they killed him off. They suicided him. I don't think so. Unless they had somehow found all of the information that he had on people, I don't think so. Because I think he had very, very strong stuff that could put very high positioned people in a very dark place very quickly. So I just have my doubts. But like I'm saying, we are a little over 100 days. I don't see the real criminals going to prison. I still see money going to Ukraine. And we know that Ukraine is corrupt as you can get. Still giving money to Israel. I don't know why we give money to Israel at all. They are self-supporting. They're self-sufficient. Why do we give them money? For what? And you know how backwards it is? We give them, I don't know, it's like 10 or $11 billion a year, right? And then what they do, they take that money and they buy our arms so that they can defend themselves with that money. It's backwards. Trump has warned Iran that the United States makes the best weapons on the face of the planet, and that Israel will be getting some of those weapons, and that Iran better behave themselves. This is a nowhere street, people. Before we know it, I hope and I pray that somebody doesn't decide, all right, that's it, we're going. Because the first thing is, when you have someone like Israel who continuously picks on other countries, and they say Israel plays the victim, they do a damn good job of marketing themselves as the victim. They're not specifically the perpetrator, but they're not the victim. In many instances they are, though. They've wanted all of the land that was once called Palestine for a long time, and they've publicly declared that. We're going to go from the river to the sea. We're going back to biblical borders. That means they're going to take part of Jordan. They're going to take part of Egypt. But they're the ones who are crying, oh, these people always want to kill us, blah, 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 blah. Look up the real story about Israel, how Israel was formed, and you'll see. It wasn't called Israel prior to 1943. It was called Palestine. And then my Christian friends will argue with me that, well, that's God's land and gave them that land. And God said he was going to bring them and give them their land back. God didn't do that. God is not the one who provided Israel with the country and the land. It was some very evil people who did it. And then you expect that to be biblical? Maybe, I don't know. I just know that it wasn't God reaching out in some supernatural way and saying, okay, Palestinians, your time is up. Israel is moving in, and now this is going to be called Israel. When it first happened, the Palestinians, who are known for many years as troublemakers, because sadly, there are some bad apples in there, and they did some bad stuff. And so that shined on the rest of the Palestinians. They're not all bad. It's just like, you run into a group of people and one or two of them are bad, and you say the whole group is bad. That's not true. It's one or two of them. And the same thing with Palestinians. Not all Palestinians are terrorists. Now, when you carry it on into time after everything started back in 1943, I think it was, or 45, I don't recall, Palestinians welcomed them. They had Jewish people already living there. There were Jewish people living there. There were Muslim people living there. There were Christian people living there. And they had little spats here and there, but it was nothing like what you're seeing today. Nothing at all, not even close. And then they decided that the Jews, they got 7 million Jews were murdered. And that now they're what did they say? It was a people without a country. They're a people without a country. They need a country. And so some very rich and sadly powerful people got together and decided, well, we're going to take Palestine and we're going to turn it back into Israel. And we're going to say, hey, all of you Jewish people, come on in. And many of the Jewish people who initially moved to Israel were not true Jewish people. They weren't Jewish by blood. They were what's called an Ashkenazi Jew. They were Jewish by adoption. And now they say, well, this is our land. God has given us this land. They literally kicked, I can't tell you, thousands, probably tens of thousands of Palestinians out of their homes. This is no longer your house. I know you've had, 10 generations here? Too bad. Time's up. See you, bye. So I'm not sticking up for the Palestinians, and I'm not putting down the Jewish people. I will put down the government, the Israeli government, because they're scumbags. They're worse than our government. But a lot of the Jewish people have been indoctrinated in this belief, just like we're watching our children be indoctrinated today, to hate the country, to love all of these sick, twisted things that do nothing but bring more division and more harm to our country. Well, those people over there have been indoctrinated by their government, that the Palestinians are scum of the earth, that the Palestinians have no right to the land no matter what, even though they have generation upon generation upon generation living in there. No, that's all right. God said it's our land and we're taking it. Just to give you kind of an idea of what's happening over there. It's not as simple as people say. Oh, well, the Palestinians are all terrorists. They're the ones who support all these terrorist groups. I can't think of one particular one right now, but what happens with these terrorist groups is they hide. They hide in the residences of Gaza in an effort so that the Israeli government doesn't shoot them, but they shoot them anyway, and they destroy the whole place, and then they get blamed for destroying the residences because these Hamas and these other people are hiding out in there. I'm telling you that they have the technology to find the bad guys, to be able to single out the bad guys. They have the technology, and they've done it a couple of times, but they don't do it on a continuous basis. If they would do it on a continuous basis, I think a lot of it would go away. You're always going to have somebody who doesn't like them for what they have done, because they feel that they have stolen their land. I'm talking about Palestinians. They feel like they have stolen their land. And in some cases, it seems that way, very much so. Having lived there for generation upon generation and then told, get out. This is no longer your home. This is my house now. How do you think I would feel? Oh, wow. All right, going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to have Pete Harding on with me. We're going to talk about some good stuff. And won't be long. Here we go.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
You're listening to the Red Pill Reality Show. We'll be right back.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill.
I can't help but look around and feel like things are getting out of hand. We've been told to trust the science, but the science just doesn't make sense. They say it isn't mandatory, but they also say your jab or your job. But if it doesn't stop the spread, it makes it feel like this is just a facade. What about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems a country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. I can't help but look around and feel like minds are slowly starting to change. Cause even if you're triple vaccinated, know that segregation isn't the way. Freedom is a choice and it's available to all if we choose. But first things first, you gotta turn off the news. Yo, what about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems the country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. If you're late to the party, there's plenty room at the table. This side don't discriminate. I'm calling on every single man, woman, child if they're able. It's time to take the streets and liberate. But please don't be a part of the problem, staying willfully ignorant, cause there's just way too much at stake. Yo, it's okay to change your mind, you can admit you were wrong, cause where there's perfect love there ain't no shame. Heavenly Father, show me what I don't understand yet. I got my marching orders, I don't fully know the plan yet. Hold on to my Bible before bed, no it ain't banned yet. Did you know the makers of the vaccine make the Xanax? I would never lean on corporations for morality, cause they put their profits over people for their salaries. Know they wanna make you bend the knee for your normality. I know you feeling all alone, but in reality, there's way more of us than them. 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 That's the truth. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us. There's way more of us than them.
And we're back. Hope you didn't go too far, because we have more interesting and thought-provoking information for you coming up on the Red Pill Reality Show.
Let's see if we can make an adjustment. There we go. All right, we are back. Let me get Peter on. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Are you there, Pete? Looks like your mic is muted. Well, unmute him. Okay, well, we're waiting for Pete to come back on. Hopefully he'll show up here in a moment.
Hey there, Riscalla.
There he is. All right, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Can you hear me okay?
We're going to be talking about how to hold some of these public servants responsible for some of the stuff that they're doing. You started this thing called AGOA, the Administration of Government Oversight and Accountability.
Correct.
So let's tell me a little bit about that so that the people understand what is it? What does it do? How does somebody help?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you bringing me on the radio show, and I just really grateful for everything that you've been doing for everybody. So thank you. Just want to start with that. Can you hear me okay? Ooh. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. So with the AGOA, sorry, just a little bit distracted. Got done with an honor flight here, and just returning home. So just unloading everything. The AGOA, what the AGOA is, starts the Administration of Government Oversight and Accountability. And what we do, the whole reason for designing that was to hold public servants accountable. Because what happens with our public servants is they're not held accountable, and they're realizing that nobody is holding them accountable.
You're fading in and out.
Oh, but do you still have me?
Yeah, if you're moving around, find a good spot because you're fading in and out.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. Just trying to get inside the house here. I do apologize. We had a problem, an issue with some parking. But anyways, yeah, gotta get the stuff here taken care of. All right, there we go. So with the AGOA, with the public servants, our public servants aren't being held accountable, just as you were talking about in your piece before. You know, we had President Trump, and we think that he's going to be holding everybody accountable. And, you know, we were having a conversation the other day, you and I, about how President Trump, the first time around with Jeff Sessions in office as his attorney general, It just wasn't working out. They just waited to prosecute these people. They said they had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these sealed affidavits, right? And they know what to do. They're just kicking the can down the road. And that's what they're doing this time. So 5 months, they've already bought 5 months. That's, almost what, of a 4-year term. And, in the last few months, the guy is going to be in office. We all know nothing's going to get done. And especially after November, then absolutely nothing's going to get done. So they've essentially bought all this time, 5 months worth of no prosecutions, where they said they were going to do all of that. We were going to see prosecutions of all the people involved with COVID, Fauci, and all these public servants who were stealing from us, that Elon Musk proved, and his team, Doge team, proved. Look at all USAID is stealing this money. These NGOs are stealing this money. They've said that they're going after these public servants for the mayors and the governors. For, Tom Homan comes out and talks tough, and he talks big about doing all this stuff. And we never get any prosecutions. We never get anywhere. And you and I were talking the other day, and basically it is theater. It's all political theater. It's smoke and mirrors. It's dog and pony show. It is all about them protecting one another the best that they possibly can. And that's where go ahead.
I don't think there's truly two sides. Does that make sense? I don't think we have, like people say, a left and a right. We have government, we have Democrats, and we have Republicans. I think it's like one party. They have different labels, but it's one party. They basically, some of them have, the best way to describe, so some of them have more pull than others, and they may have a different way of the end result, but the end result between them is basically the same thing. The eventual, what they want is total control over everything. Total.
I agree. And that's bearing itself out more and more every day.
Well, I mentioned to you, it scares, one of the things that really scares me about Trump, I have never, ever seen a rally where people start chanting, "We love you, we love you, we love you." To me, and he made a statement one time, which I went, "Oh, I can't believe he said that." Something, I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, "Oh, they love me so much I could shoot somebody," or something to that effect, and they'd still love me. So the scary part about this is that people on the outside see how people see this man, they adore this man, they almost worship the guy. I can see where people think, "Oh my God, the Trump people are in a cult," almost like being in a cult, in the sense that you have this man that almost being idolized at this point. And I don't want to talk him down, because he's done some great things, but I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like the feeling of like, oh my God, I can't remember the name of his song. I grew up as a teenager, used to play it all the time. Teenage Wasteland by The Who. And they said something to the effect of, "It's a new boss, the same as the old boss." So what we have here, okay, so this guy's that we have now, Trump, is doing something that everybody approves of, and with regard to the immigration, yeah, hey, that's great. And kind of keeping our focus on, immigration. It seems like every day they're talking about ICE and the riots and immigration, and that just tells me that if they're trying to focus our attention on that, something else is going on. And one of the things that I found out about, like I mentioned earlier, is this idea that they contracted with this company to have all of this information gathered into one central station. And that is the root, that's the base for a social credit system. If they can get digital currency, if they can get us totally digital, now they have, so already imagine this, we still have cash available, thank God. But I think his name was Kanye West, I think is the guy's name. He's some super guy. He was buddies with Trump on the first go around, and he started speaking out against the music industry. And then I see a video of this guy, like maybe a month and a half later. He's saying that they have frozen, meaning I think it was Sony or one of the big corporations, I don't know which one, have frozen his bank account, millions of dollars that this guy has. They froze his bank account. So we already know that they can do it. But the thing about it is, if you have cash on hand, they freeze your account. You got a little option. You got something to work with. Once the cash is gone, now they have you with a noose around your neck, because if they can cut you off when you still have cash, imagine how much more they can do when cash is not available. And you make a statement that somebody doesn't like. It's a statement on Facebook. I've been in Facebook jail. I can't tell you how many times for some of the things I said, especially when we talk about the thing that goes in the arm. Oh my gosh, now you're talking trouble. So I make a statement like that, and now we're on a digital currency. I don't have cash anymore. And they decide, oh, what, you know what, Riscalla, you mentioned the thing that goes in the arm. We don't like that. We're going to fine you $250. Don't worry about sending it in. We'll just take it right out of your account. Oh, and you're not allowed to go shopping for anything for 2 weeks. This is what we're being set up to. I really believe that.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you 100%. You nailed it. They have shown what it is that they're willing to do to us during COVID. And the song that you play is awesome.
So you see how much they got away with in COVID. I think that's the tip of the iceberg with these people.
Well, I think it's the thing that everybody really sees. And I'll be honest with you, I think that it's what God is. He used that moment to wake as many people up as he could. You know, you and I were talking the other day, and there have been some massive thefts of our rights, and one of them, our right to travel. Right, the Department of Motor Vehicles, an independent corporation that was set up to deprive our right to travel, and people knew at that time that wasn't supposed to be the way that it was. But what happens is they're playing a long game. The people that are in this, what they understand and realize fully is, just like with the tests, right? They have the measurables during COVID. You know, were you going to go out there and try to kill somebody for toilet paper? Were you going to, stash away all your change? What were you going to do with your mask, and so on? And so, were you going to go get the injection to keep your job? They were measuring compliance. And they know the window. They have all the studies, they have all the information, they know how to engage in these psyops and get the people who are susceptible to it into the mass formation, hypnosis, psychosis mode regularly. So, with the traveling and the cars, you had a period of time in the 50s and the 60s and 70s where people are like, no, I don't need a driver's license to travel. And it's a slow integration, right? You'll have some states that aren't going to do it. Like, they're going to wait, but ultimately everybody caves to it. And then you get to property, the same exact thing with property taxes. You and I were talking about alloidal titles the other day, and and real property, and what the government did to incorporate each and every village, town, city, county, and state. So there's a corporation. That's the fact, right? These corporations exist. They have their EIN numbers, and it's not set up the way it was supposed to be. Prior to that, most of the towns incorporated sometime in the mid 1800s, late 1800s. Some a little bit more recently. But what that did is it took all of the property that you owned as an individual, and it gave it to them. They transferred all of that property. I mean, that is, people always want to say, well, this is the biggest travesty. This is the biggest travesty. In my opinion, when you eliminated our right to travel and you took away our properties, those were massive violations on each and every one of us.
People don't
And
realize that our rights have been turned into privileges.
you're right. But here's the thing. We can take those rights back immediately. And that's a big part of what the AGOA is. And, we are trying to educate public servants on how to do their jobs the right way, constitutionally, truly constitutionally. And when I started in this, I made sure that you and I talked again the other day when we were speaking, we were talking about words matter. What you say, how you reference things matter. And if you reference the government as government, it's this big looming entity that has control over you. If you say it's a public official, right? There's no public officials. Everybody, including the president, is a public servant of the people. And as we started to speak like that more and more and more to everybody in our circles, now you're even hearing public servants refer to themselves as public servants again, which was the whole idea and intention behind using the words that we're using. Because the public servants and all the experiences that I've had in thousands of interactions with public servants of all kinds, whether it's law enforcement, it could be a bureaucrat working within a town or a village, it could be a judge, it could be a town attorney, it could be a mayor or a supervisor or a town board member. None of them know or have been trained on how to do their jobs the proper way. And as you get further, so there are lots of parts of the country here that are operating closely to the way they should be. And that is constitutionally, they are administering, all public servants, all they're supposed to do, right on up to the president, is administer the people's affairs. That's all it's supposed to be. And each one has a role and a specific job. And in some parts of the country, and even certain parts of New York State, they understand that. But most people have no idea. They're doing what, in all likelihood, an administrator before them. So just imagine this. You have a town of 50,000 people, and you have the Republican Party, and you have the Democrat Party. And maybe you have a couple other lines that are on there, but essentially they're all the same, right? And what's going to happen is these people are going to spend a lot of time and money focused in on trying to attain that office. And let's just say there's been a person that has been in that position for, let's say they've been in there 10 years. Well, if they were a Republican and now there's a Democrat coming in, who's going to teach that Democrat exactly what to do, what the functions of that job should be? Well, with the AGOA, what we're trying to establish is that there is a template. Like, here is your job title. This is exactly what you should do. And this way, the chance for the deep state or the administrative state or the bureaucratic state, the administrative state, to be there in existence and hurt the people is reduced then. And because this way there's already a formula. There's the policies and the procedures that these people have to follow and adhere to. But going back to the example that I was referencing, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have people who are working administratively. It doesn't matter if it's Republican replacing Democrat or Democrat replacing Republican. That person's going to get into that position and they're going to have no idea what to do. So who are they reliant upon? They're going to be reliant upon the administrators that are there sharing that information with them. And who's to say that those administrators or bureaucrats that are within those positions, occupying those positions, are going to share the information, the right information, or who's going to say that they even know the information, right? And that's typically what we find is that, generationally speaking, or as you're going through these regime changes, so-called regime changes, within, each one of the villages, towns, cities, counties, across the country, and the state positions, that is how we have gotten so far off track that you can even, at one point in the 50s and the 60s, there was an act passed, and I can't remember the name of it, but essentially abolished communism in our country. And you couldn't be a communist. Well, now you've got this gentleman named Zoran Mamdani, and he is leading in the polls for New York City mayor. He is a Indian Muslim who hates, and I whether you hate Jews or not, that's up to you, Israel. But he he went through his YouTube page and his Facebook page, and he eliminated everything that he had on there. But he hates Jews, and he hates if you're of the Islamic faith, you are commanded by the Quran to do certain things. Some of those things include that if you are not of the Islamic faith, you have three choices. You are either going to become Islam. If you're not, then you got to pay them tax, whatever they deem appropriate, or it's by death. And that's what the Quran commands them to do. And the people of Islamic faith, they're also told that they can lie to you. If you are a non-Islam person and you're looking to advance Islam wherever it is, and all you need to do is take a look around the world. Which countries are predominantly Islamic faith, and in those countries that are, you don't see other religions because they won't stand for it. And we're seeing it now in Nigeria where they're killing people. But this is how you're seeing the slow walk in, the slow matriculation in. The communists in Russia, they told us they're one whistleblower after another said, this is a decades long venture for us. We're not looking to take you down now. We know we can't. But we're your children, your children's children, and we're seeing that in schools. So you shouldn't even have a democratic socialist. But here you have in New York State, you almost have there's a majority, but I can't remember what kind of majority they refer to it as, super majority. In every single in Albany, the Senate and the Republicans. And not only are they Democrat super majority, but they're doing a slow walk right now that they've declared themselves as Democrat socialists. You probably heard this term. So you've gotten so far away within a matter of 5 or 6 decades from where we should have been and where it was intended to be to where we are now. And when that new public servant goes in, you should never have a Democrat socialist. If our children are being taught the way they should be taught about how civics works and how our country works and how a constitutional republic works and every part of our constitution, and then legally and lawfully how everything is operated and conducted, we would never get into this situation. But they have separated all of us from that knowledge, and you're not getting educated that. So this is why you're seeing what you're seeing in the country, and this is why you're seeing Elon Musk was so pissed off that no one was holding anybody accountable. Nobody. He said, we are showing you the crimes, right?
I think also what pissed him off is that he found all this money. And my mic must have turned down a little bit. He found all this money, fraud, and waste and all that. Then they passed this thing called this big, beautiful bill, and there's more garbage in it. It's just like, why did I spend my time for free, by the way, and bring this to your attention if you're just going to look the other way? What value did? So I don't blame her for being upset. I really don't.
I don't blame Elon Musk one bit. Elon Musk is a genius. He's a gift. He's a blessing. I don't agree with everything that Elon Musk does, but on this, he's right.
It scares me.
Yeah, I mean, transhumanism, just with everything that he's doing and and how he speaks, and like you had mentioned in your opening monologue, it is very difficult to determine and isolate who is on which side. These people are very good at hiding who they are truly.
Yeah, think about it. They've had generations upon generations upon generations on how to manipulate entire societies into an agenda. They figure out, okay, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Meanwhile, you and I and other people like us who are working our behinds off, just trying to make ends meet, have our focus on, oh my gosh, we got to make sure we got enough food, we got clothing, we got, especially if you got kids, you got to take care of the kids. And they, sadly, they're in a position where they don't have to worry about that. They have more than enough money. They have more than enough money for eons of generations. Now what they do is they focus on, okay, that's how we're going to do this to this society. How are we going to control that? How are we going to get them to like this? How are we going to get them to do that? How are we going to get them to dislike this? How are we going to get them to want this? A long time ago, before I ever got involved in any of this, I said something to a friend of mine. I was working at Radio Shack. Those who may not remember Radio Shack, it was an electronics store, and they had a wide variety of electronics, anything from electronic parts to stereos. And we were having a conversation one day, and I said to him, oh, I just had a completely blank mind. Oh my God, this has been happening more to me. I'm wondering if I'm being exposed to something. Really, I just, my mind just went completely blank. Good gravy. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Anyway, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, there's been a
That's
lot of.
Embarrassing. Ah,
Oh, don't be
completely
embarrassed.
blank. Wow.
There are a lot of people that they are subjecting a lot of stuff to. It's crazy, and all kinds of attacks that we don't even realize are taking place. And all we can do is pray. That's it. God, we pray to God that He protects us.
So let me ask you: have you worked with any of these people already? Any of these reps? Any of these public servants?
Oh yeah, thousands. Yeah, just here in Erie County, where I'm at, and New York State, as well as the entire country. And we've also worked in Canada, and we've been working. Yeah,
how have you been? How have you been received? Is it one of those things? Don't tell me how to do my job. I know how to do my job, or is it? Oh, really?
and that's a great question. The way we go in is we're not going in guns blazing. We're going in softly, and we're saying that we're here for you because we truly are. If God can forgive everybody, and even for our sins, including Saul, then we have to be able to forgive these people. We have to believe these people are redeemable. And that's where we go in with the AGOA. And essentially where we start off with is the very, very basic. And it will go to a meeting. It will be very considerate, kind, and respectful of everything they've got going on. If they have, an open session, we'll ask them if it's okay if we speak. And sometimes sometimes they'll say no, because they'll give some reason that you're not a resident, you need to be a resident, you're not paying taxes, whatever reason they might give. And there are those towns and municipalities that are going to do that. There's a whole way to combat that, and I don't want to get into that right now. I want to address your question. So there are some.
And on an average basis, would you say that when you are able to approach these people, are they accepting of what you're trying to do, or do they feel like threatened? Or maybe how much ego is playing? Because a lot of these politicians, their egos bigger than the world. So how many times you run into something where they go, no, that I know how to do my job. No. Or is it more accepting and say, oh, wow, yeah, let me, tell me more?
The latter. Overwhelmingly, most of the public servants want to do the right job. They just don't know how to. They've never been educated on it. And they are accepting. There's a little bit of bewilderment. There's a little bit of even astonishment. Like, oh, wait a minute. You mean there's actually an organization that is going to hold us accountable and try to train us. So there's a little bit of that, but you do have, in certain instances, where they may have a preconceived notion about you, and what you've done and who they think you might be based on your history. And one of the things that I say, if they are adversarial or combative, is that, look at, I'm coming in here with a clean slate. I'm, giving you the benefit of the doubt. I don't agree with everything that you've done. I'm asking for you to extend me the same courtesy. And a lot of those people who will be the ones that have the egos and they don't want to hear you, and they're going to, sit there screaming and yelling, they will acquiesce. They'll give in a little bit, and they'll extend you that courtesy and kind of see how it all plays out. So you got to be grateful for that, and then you got to utilize that to the best of your ability. And really, where we're going with this is it's all about constitutionality, which is ironic that you're hearing the Democrats and liberals now, the leftists, the socialists, the communists, talking about the Constitution and how we need to adhere to the Constitution. And look at, if you are that person and now you're advocating for constitutionality, that's wonderful. I'll take any win. But we all know that it's just lip service. It's lip service, and it's only to suit them. But however, there is, in some instances, there's some sincerity. So when I'm going into these public servants and I'm introducing myself, I am making sure that it's a clean slate for them, every one of them, and I'm asking them to extend a clean slate for me. And then I have to honor that. I can't, I have to operate from the highest level of morality, virtue, honesty, and integrity. And how I do that is I present facts, not, again, in a way that I am attacking them in any way, but the way that I do it is, hey, you took an oath of office, right? And, do you have a valid oath of office on file? Not all public servants do. Not asking you to present that at this point, but just, bring it to your attention, and that you swear an oath to uphold the state's constitution and the U.S. Constitution with that oath under penalty of law. And then I'll ask them, are you familiar what the laws are? And, most states will have those laws clearly defined by, a violation of oath of office or public corruption and some manner where they'll have that law in the penal code. For example, in New York State, they've got, and I don't even know exactly where they have it, but it's written down that if a public servant doesn't have their oath of office, if it's not signed and recorded, and they are made aware of it, their position is vacant. And there is no process that goes into that. And most of these public servants have no idea that that's the case. And their position, and if they continue to remain in their position, now what they're doing is they're defrauding the people. And what they're doing is they are taking a paycheck from the people that they are not entitled to, because they should have their position is vacant. And the only way they can get their position back is by reappointment or reelection. And you don't see that happening very often. And as a result, you got to fight. And you and I were talking about this the other day. When you're doing this, you've got to operate not only in the real world where their unified court systems are, where their town attorneys are, where their local judges are, where their law enforcement is, their policies and regulations, all of that stuff. We have to operate in that world at this point if we have any hope of being able to get it back to where it was always intended to be. But at this point here, you'll have your attorneys that are part of the bars who will say, oh, violating an oath of office is no big deal. Oh, destroying public evidence is no big deal. Well, it's not a big deal because you've said it's not a big deal. It actually is a big deal, but the real world says you're supposed to say it's not a big deal because you're all trying to protect one another.
Yeah.
And that's not the way the courts are operating. Courts aren't operating to hold public servants accountable, which they should be. That is, I'm not even going to say it's at the bottom of the list. It's not even on their list in most municipalities.
Hmm. So when you find like somebody who you focus on somebody, you hear about a representative or you hear about, uh, have you gotten as high as a mayor or even a governor?
Oh yeah, yep.
Really? You've had discussions with like mayors and governors?
No, discussions with mayors and supervisors, never
Uh-huh.
the governor. But
Okay.
we have done investigations. I'll give you an example. When everything was going down with Texas and the border under the Biden administration, where they were telling, Ken Abbott, the Attorney General, and oh my God, no, it's Ken Paxton and Governor Abbott, right? I believe. So Ken Paxton's the Attorney General, and then Governor Abbott. They were trying to put the fences up, and we had Border Patrol saying, "No, you can't have those fences. People got to be allowed to come in freely." And and now it's evading me. But I sent at that point, the article and the amendment in the Constitution, because there's several things within the Constitution that say an invasion can't happen, which is what's happening right now. You have the right to protect yourself from invaders, and then, but also the states have that. If the federal government won't do it, the state government has the right to protect themselves. So I took those clauses from the Constitution, and I forwarded them over to Ken Paxton's office, his Attorney General's office. And, I left them my phone number, and then somebody reached out to me from their office, just an underling. And then I again forwarded it over to them. And it was within days that they had utilized that within the case that they had brought against the Biden administration. And it's things like that can happen at light speed. However, you have to have somebody like Ken Paxton, who was highly motivated in that moment with that particular set of circumstances. Normally and ordinarily, it's like you said, even though the public servant may be a good person, they've been in that position. They think they know best. So even though you're going to be there trying to, be there to help them and advocate for them, advise and consult, they're going to look, that's just going to hit them and they're not going to hear it. So there are those situations where we get very fortunate. With the Canadian government, what we do there is we're aware of different factions that are up there. And one of the things that we do is we put together entire policies. So from beginning to end, not only, hey, this is where you want to go, but we give them the slow walk. Here are what we're recommending to you to get to where it is that you're saying you want to be. And we'll provide that information in every instance when we're doing that. It is peaceful. It always has to be rooted in peace. And you want to make that slow transition, or sometimes it's got to be a quick transition to wherever you need to be to protect the people. And when in Canada, where we're fortunate that they do have some of their, not prime minister, that's the entire country, but, the heads of different provinces that they've got, like in, Manitoba, they are, they're very highly motivated at this point because of what's happened in Mark Carney and prior to him, Justin Trudeau, and they're the Liberals in Canada are just a nightmare situation. Plus, with all the immigration and the crime going through the roof, they're trying to protect themselves. So what we're doing is,
I wasn't aware that you work with Canada as well. I thought it was strictly with the United States. Wow.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll work with everybody that reaches out to us, and essentially what we'll do is we'll review the laws. we'll have conversations with public servants, and we'll review the Constitution that they have. If there's a state constitution, we have to review the state constitution. And that's really that's where we're basing everything, because people want to say there's constitutional law. No, there's the Constitution. You know what I mean? And then there's Supreme Court decisions that are either constitutional or they're not. If they're unconstitutional, then Marbury versus Madison, just like any law that there is, even an amendment, it is to be ignored if it's repugnant to the Constitution. And that is fundamental in everything that we do. So when like and there are a lot of different things in Canada. There's different set of concerns and criteria, giving that they are essentially still attached, affiliated with England, but so it does get pretty nuanced when you're up there. But we'll review everything that we need to in order to make the best possible recommendation that we can, and we're always looking to work with people so that they can say, to help us understand. That's where we are with the AGOA. We know fundamentally this is where we're supposed to be, but help us understand how to get there and help us understand where you are right now.
So if somebody, let's say here in the United States, let's say I run into a situation where I feel that it might be like a mayor or maybe a councilman. That's a good example, because this really happened. What about a situation where you have what do they call them? They're councilmen, but the whole council. When you have the whole, I can't think of what it's called.
Town board, or usually it's city council or town board, village board.
This was the city council, I believe. So what happens when you have a city council that does something that is clearly unconstitutional? Can you somehow step in and help to get these people to understand what they're doing is not right?
It's a process, but yes. And essentially where we're trying to get to with the AGOA is to get every public servant educated to do their job as constitutionally as possible. We get the town to incorporate different offices within the town to make sure that they are overseeing certain things, particularly with government efficiency, but with Doge, and then with elections, making sure that everybody is getting one vote. And then the courts, there's court overwatch and court watching and oversight as well. So let's just use your example, go into the town or that city. Somebody comes to us with a complaint, whatever that might be, they've been victimized, or let's just say the council passes what they are calling a law that is completely unconstitutional, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen right now so if you're a Democrat and the Republicans do something that you don't like, even if it's constitutional, you're still going to take them to court, right? And what you've done is you've put, town attorneys in place and district attorneys in place and judges in place where they're going to work with you to get to the end that you want. That's the way, and I'm going to be honest with you, that's the way it was intended to be. However, it wasn't intended to be utilized the way that it is with Democrats, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to adhere to the Constitution, and everything in it, that you're protecting the people from these constant overreaches. What happens if city council does something now? If you're going to bring a lawsuit, like let's just say, for example, here in New York State, we assisted with a lawsuit. There was an individual, her name was Bobby Ann Cox, and she's a great attorney from, down in like the Long Island area. And she was instrumental in helping everybody during COVID. She was one of a handful of attorneys that were willing to do things for people. Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but under Kathy Hochul. So in New York State, you have New York State rules and regulations. It is absolutely meaningless, but it is the end around for city councils and public servants to get things adopted that they know otherwise would not be, that they couldn't make it into law. And rather than it going through a legislative session and going through the duly elected legislative body to get passed, what the New York State rules and regulations does, what they do is they have, it's called executive law. So executive law. And essentially what happens is they'll make a recommendation, and that recommendation will be whatever they want. And then there are two public what do they call it? Public comment sessions. One is 30 days and the second is 15 days. Well, it's all orchestrated by attorneys who are within the bar. And if they want what it is that they're trying to get in, they're going to do it. And most people just aren't paying attention. They are now more than ever because of COVID, but they weren't for a long time, and they still aren't fundamentally. But what Bobby Ann Cox did, you probably heard about this. It was heavily publicized and covered. Fortunately, we were able to get it out there. But under Hochul, what they wanted to do in New York State rules and regulations was create a condition where the governor alone could decide if you or an organization could be put in quarantine. You would not be subject to judicial review. And it would be
there's no process.
No due process.
Wow.
And it could be it'll be as long as they deem appropriate. Well, Bobby Ann Cox brought that case, and there were a few other we call public servants that were operating. County executives is what they refer to them here, and a couple of them were really good. The court, when they filed the lawsuit, they won at the local level, the New York State Supreme Court. They won their initial case. The judge was just astonished, could not believe, he was mystified at how something like this could exist, or that anybody would try to pass this. And he said so in his decision. The state appealed, and the appellate court that was in Rochester, they ruled the five judge panel, sorry, they ruled that the individuals who brought the case didn't have standing because they hadn't actually been put into a quarantine camp. So, and it's so ironic because when you're listening to the Democrats plead their cases, right, you have all kinds of people who don't have any standing or any claim because they haven't been harmed, but yet they are getting universal injunctions, right? So the reality, and Bobby Ann Cox came out, and I advise attorneys and consult them all over the country on various matters, because I haven't been legally trained other than just observing everything that's happening at a very, very close, an intricate and nuanced level. So they will ask me for recommendations, and just to say, hey, what did you use in this case, or this case, or this case? What type of argument? And because they are so boxed in, because you're generally used to doing, conducting, the law that they have been, they're not creative in the way they approach things. So Bobby Ann Cox, she was completely dismayed, completely dejected. And she said, this is not the America I know. She goes, this court system, I never thought that we would get to the point where this is. So, with our district attorneys and the judges, even the El Salvadoran president said, you are in a constitutional crisis right now, because in my country, this is what they did. They took, in order to control the country and the money and the finances, and essentially try to take us over for decades. We had these judges and these district attorneys that were there, and we had to remove them. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of answer your question there with the city council, specifically giving you all those different references and examples, we would bring a lawsuit against them immediately. But when I mention in reference, it's the reality that we're working in. Who are their players in that? Because they have their systems put in place where they're going to be able to make sure you're not able to see through what it is that you want to see through. So you have to get very creative, and you have to make sure that, you know, people are going to be in it for the long haul. And, you know, most attorneys do not want to take these cases on. They're time consuming and they're not going to make any money. But also, most attorneys, you know, you ask why COVID happened and why attorneys didn't go after, you know, they knew everything that was wrong, but they didn't go after it. Well, the courts weren't allowing them in those you know, the counties that they were where they are, or the states that they're able to practice law. But they're also scared because they're making money. It's their reputation. They can't be ostracized or marginalized. And what will happen if they file a lawsuit that isn't popular? They will fall out of favor with all the people that they're working with. And in that legal circle, if you fall out of favor with that, the way that you're going to be able to represent your clients faithfully is going to be very difficult because they're creating that situation for you. With the AGOA, what we have done is we have figured out how to file the lawsuits that we need to file so that we can be able to see it through. But also, there's an activist component to it. There's also a media component to it. So, you know, we are falling on all the tools and resources that we have accrued and at our disposal to be able to see that case through with a city council. And where we're different than an attorney is that an attorney is not going to go after a public servant with the other tools that are available to all people that most people don't understand that are available, which could be an audit. It could be an investigation through the inspector generals of the state. You know, it could be the Office of Public Corruption that you're making a plea with, or it could be the town and city's own bylaws, or their charter, or their code of ethics. An attorney isn't going to reference or recommend that to anybody, because if they do, it's political suicide for them.
Wow. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I got to get a refill on my drink, and we're going to make it a quickie here. Let's see. All right, guys, hang in there. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Red Pill Reality Show. We'll be right back.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill.
I just can't help myself. I keep falling deeper and deeper. Every day. Every night. It gets harder. I just can't stop thinking. I keep on falling. I keep on falling. In love with you. Sometimes I love you. Sometimes you make me feel blue. Sometimes I feel good. At times I feel used. The way you love me makes me so confused. I keep on falling in and out of love with you. I never loved someone the
citizenry with Falling in Love right here on Celebrity Records.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
We have ignition. Strap in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
We're back. Hope you didn't go too far, because we have more interesting and thought-provoking information for you coming up on the Red Pill Reality Show.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. Let me bring Pete back on here. All right, Pete, we are back on. Welcome back.
Hey. Got
So
all that one.
We were talking about like a commission, for example, a bunch of commissioners, because this happened to me when I was in Florida, where these commissioners were clearly out of the envelope of authority that they had. They were closing down businesses that they felt were, quote, non-essential. They were forcing people to wear masks, which have now been proven, which I knew back then, but which now have been proven to be non-effective. They were actually causing a lot of undue hardship with the requirements that they are asking people to stick up to. So what could somebody, like I call you and I go, hey, Pete, these guys are, I mean, they're over the edge. I'm getting an echo. I guess if you're on speakerphone, turn it down a little bit. They're over the edge. And what can we do about it? You mentioned filing a suit. I don't know that, I think they would laugh at you, honestly.
Is that, am I still echoing, or is that better?
No, echo's gone.
Okay, good. All right. With COVID specifically, you're right. They needed to, the courts were closed. You couldn't bring that lawsuit. So for us here, what we ended up learning was with the Department of Health in Erie County, who were especially tyrannical, and this is what they were doing here as well. We ended up telling them, we posted for people on their doors. We created the small business, a small business organization that was actually going to represent these small businesses in a way that was going to truly protect them, because chambers of commerce and small business associations were completely derelict in their duties, and they turned their back on all of these businesses. What we figured out was the Department of Health had absolutely no jurisdiction or ability to walk into your property. They couldn't do it. They had to obtain a warrant. But the way they were getting people to comply was they sold people that, hey, if you allow us to do this and you work with us with all the masking and all the other ridiculous nonsense, some businesses had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to put these measures in that, Anthony Fauci admitted we were making it all up as we went along. And, they put so many businesses out of business. It was tragic. But so they convinced the business owner to say, come on in, play along with us, and we're going to allow you to be essential, which ended up, these people, what they were subjected to and had to endure was horrible. And, just so that you could try to keep the business open. And nobody had any facts. So what we would tell them is, have them show you the facts. Have them show you that, if you have people at your business that it's going to contaminate all these people, have them show you the numbers. And they couldn't do that. So we started to chip away at it. And then, so the only two things, the handful of things that these, what they did here in New York State for business was they brought in local law enforcement, a county sheriff, state trooper, who had no authority whatsoever to shut you down. They didn't have a warrant. But what they brought in also, if it was a restaurant that had alcohol, state liquor authority, the Department of Taxation and Finance, and they would bring in the inspector of that town or the city. And they would prey on these people when they were alone, and they would tell them, give us everything that we want, or we're going to shut you down. And if we're not going to shut you down, we're going to take your liquor license. If we're not going to take your liquor license, we're going to turn the electricity off, or the gas off, or the water off. Or the inspector would say, we're going to drastically reduce the amount of people, your occupancy rate, so that you're not going to be able to bring anybody in here. And the moment that you go over that number, we're going to shut the place down. It was awful. What we ended up doing.
So it's just straight up evil. So there was a guy in West Palm. I think he was in West Palm. He was in Palm Beach County, who had a gym. And of course, back then we were saying, well, gyms are non-essential. You can't blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, I'll take the equipment that he could and put it out in the parking lot. And we'll do it out in the parking lot, out in the fresh air. Hey, yeah, they fined him and shut him down.
What we realized, we had a gym here as well that happened. And we had a bunch of the patriots there who had developed these processes, and the sheriffs came in and we were yelling, get out, get out, get out. And they ended up leaving the building. Wow. And that gym was able to stay open. Go ahead.
The reason I bring this up is they've been mentioning now, and it's becoming more and more chatter, I guess is the correct term, about another pandemic. There's another pandemic coming, and this one's deadlier than the last one. And if they try to pull this garbage again, I'm concerned that a lot of people are just going to fall right. Okay, if you say so. I don't think people really understood the lesson from the last one. And so we have, little to no recourse. I'm so grateful for people like you, at least bringing it out into the open, where you're not afraid to make a stand in front of these people and say, hey, this is not the way we should be doing this. But I'm concerned that the majority of the people thinking or perceiving this is authority over me, this commission, whoever it was, whatever, an example that I gave you, that if they say I have to stand on my head 5 minutes a day, I'm going to stand on my head 5 minutes a day. I don't know how to get around that. The only resolve to that in my mind is for people to be knowledgeable. But I think that the memory of the general public is shorter than my nose. It's truly disturbing, because I keep hearing it more and more. There's another pandemic coming. I even heard a name. I can't remember what the name was, but they've already got a name for this thing. And I'm sure there's going to be a vaccine. Shouldn't have said that. I'm sure there's going to be a, what after that. How do you defend yourself with something like that? And then you have, like, for example, you and I know a lady who was literally thrown to the ground. I mean, when I saw the videos, it just really disturbed me. And it was all over nothing more than, well, you have to have a mask to come into this business. And her response was, I don't need a mask. I have an exemption. By the same people who told you I need a mask, they also issued, there are certain exemptions, and I hold 2 of them, so I don't need a mask. Oh, no, you're going to have to put a mask on. And before we know it, the police are involved. And the next thing I know is that this over a mask is handcuffed, thrown to the ground, and then handcuffed, and then thrown in the back of a police car and taken down and put in jail and had to see a judge over a mask.
Yeah. That happened all over the country, and it was horrible. I want to kind of walk it back a little bit.
How are we going to avoid that, is what I'm saying, Pete.
Yeah, no, I get it. I want to walk it back a little bit to where we were talking about COVID before. And what we told everybody to do is put this notice up on your door where it tells a public servant, unless they have a warrant to come into your place, they are to get off your property, or you're going to charge them with trespass. Well,
Well, now,
who's going to charge them?
hang on a second, Pete. Is that good for a business as well? A business that's open to the public, can't they just walk in?
No, absolutely not. So it's a place of public accommodation. That's was one of the arguments that we used for the masking, that these businesses couldn't force you to wear a mask. Plus, it's a medical procedure. And there's actually a federal law that says that these places cannot force you to go, they can't force you to do any medical procedure, which a mask is considered a medical procedure. So what we ended up doing was using that law, the federal law that said you can't mask us, and we've been effective with that, especially with what do you call it, healthcare facilities, because that's tried to rear its ugly head again in mass transportation. Like with buses and things like that, we're always receiving calls on, okay, this is what's coming up. And what we'll do immediately is we will contact them, whoever it is, and we'll say, we're hearing that you're masking again. Do you know that this is a violation of federal law? This is the law, and that this is the penalty to that. And usually universally what they'll say is, they'll say, oh, no, we're not forcing any masks. And the people that asked us to engage in that, they come back to us and say, we received an email that said they're backing off masks. Thank you so much. So you have to be armed with the right information, which is what you're talking about. How do you get that information to the people that you need to? Because putting this notice up on a business, yes, that's absolutely where you want to put it. And because they're not really going to come to your home, but we were putting these notices up on the businesses. So what was happening initially, there were 2 Erie County sheriffs that were willing to go around Erie County to enforce all this stuff. It was an absolute disgrace. And we were able to kind of figure out who they were. And there were, I forgot the Department of Health. The Department of Health officials went there too. And there was only 2 or 3 that were doing it within the Department of Health. It was completely illegal for them to do that. But you weren't able to take them to court because they were all closed. So we figured out the entire landscape, what they were doing, how they were doing it, how they were profiting off of it, each one of these agencies, to be, this little, like, criminal cartel that was going around trying to get you to abide by all these things that you didn't have to. So essentially what we would do is then you'd say, put that up there. If they insisted that they came in, make sure they have a warrant. We told everybody, video record it. So we put really actionable items into place for people. And what we said was, get your customers, get your employees, get your vendors, get the people who are in your area, your family, your friends, even some of your church members, get them on speed dial and get them over to your business right away. And immediately start video recording it and let them know that you're video recording that, because most of the time when they start seeing that you are recording and you're standing up for yourself, they're going to leave, because these people are cowards. Plus they're they're in the wrong. So if they continue to push, they know that they're going to be held accountable. As unlikely as it seems that they would be, there is still that fear there that they will be, because we were able to start to get these people held accountable. And each and every one of those handful of individuals, from the Department of Health, the sheriffs, the state troopers, local law enforcement, the inspector of the town, and the Department of Health official, and state liquor authority, they reduced down to nothing because we utilized these tactics. And then what happened was, the county sheriff, Department of Health ended up trying to hire people that would go out there, because even the fines that they were issuing were completely unconstitutional. And when they were challenged, almost universally, the court said you had no authority to fine them. Department of Health has, you can do food quality and cleanliness. That's it. That is your scope of authority over people. You can't make decisions on masks and fines and all this other nonsense and BS. So that we were able to claw our way back to where we needed to be. And then one of the big things was, if the Department of Health was there, you said, get me the master of health. I want the master of health here in this office right now to tell me that I have to do these things. they would never send the Master of Health over because they were hoping for compliance. They were hoping for you to just acquiesce, bend the knee, like you were saying. And once people started realizing they didn't have to, it spread like wildfire. And
Well, so here's the twist to that. Another person that I know, they had a small restaurant, and they were told that they were non-essential, and they petitioned to and then this is how crazy this got. They petitioned to petition, and they were permitted to operate certain hours. It's like, well, COVID's not going to be here a certain hour of the day, or some silly stupid thing, right? So eventually, what happened was they forced these people out of business because they were not abiding by the hours. They would work, the hours that they needed to make money. The sheriff gets involved. These people end up getting arrested. They end up going to jail. So do you have to go through all of this? Because in the end run, the guy ended up filing a suit against them. He didn't win the suit the way that he filed it, but he was what am I trying to say? Compensated for he showed where he lost money, so he was compensated. So eventually it comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. The taxpayers are the one who end up paying the bill. Oh, it's the city that paid. Well, who do you think? Where does the city get the money from? So what I want to try to do is, knowing that these guys, I really believe that they're going to try another pandemic to completely, stop them in their tracks. And what do you do when you run into one of them that is so hard-headed they'll actually have you arrested? You'll go to jail. You have to go through all of that in order to be able to win, because they'll win the battle, but you'll win the war, hopefully, because you take them to court, and hopefully you'll get before a constitutional judge or a jury that understands what happened, and you can hold them responsible. But you have to go through hell first. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You have to go through hell? Can't we find a way to avoid even before we get to that point?
You absolutely, and what you have to reference are the Supreme Court of your state. There would have been lawsuits that would have been filed that went against law enforcement, and law enforcement has to have a warrant. So when you're you have to be versed and confident and comfortable in order to be able to say these things. And we put together a very simple template for these businesses to do that. And after we did that, they realized that they couldn't be held accountable. They couldn't be fined. So what was the fear for these businesses? That's what you have to determine and isolate first. And it's law enforcement. A judge has no enforcement ability, right? State liquor authority has no enforcement ability. Like, what are they going to, they could pull your liquor license from you, but if you continue to serve liquor, what is that state liquor authority representative going to do? Okay, well, he's going to try to take you to court, or he's going to try to fine you. But what real authority does he have? He doesn't. Department of Health doesn't have anything. Inspector doesn't. Where the fear lies for us as individuals, people, and business owners are law enforcement. And if law enforcement isn't supposed to be able to enforce what it is that they're doing, you have to let them know overwhelmingly, and you have to develop relationships. This is part of what we did. You have to develop relationships with them, with the AGOA, and have the real conversations with them, because they didn't like doing. I'm going to be honest with you, here in Erie County, most of them hated. And even the Department of Health, I spoke with these officials, or these public servants. Even I said officials, they hated doing what they were doing, hated it. And so you have to take that time to have these conversations with them and softly educate them, but not just educate them, but let them know, show me the law that you're able to enforce this. Where is the warrant? And then you show them the Supreme Court case from the state or the U.S. Supreme Court. You say, this says you can't do this. Why are you engaging in this? So that's how you kind of stop law enforcement there. And that's how we were successful in being able to thwart what they were doing. And that's why everything that they were doing stopped. They went from arresting people all the way down to looking for private citizens that they would pay these commissions to try to, impose these fines that they had no enforceability. That only lasted a handful of weeks before
That's
we
scary.
realized what they were doing. So you have enforced the two things that businesses and people fear are law enforcement, number one, fines, number two, right? And the fines, if they're going to fine you, is the fine ethical, legal? Like, you have to go through that part of the process too. Who is fining you? Which department is fining you? And what we realized was it was complete, and courts all over the country found that these towns and the villages, the counties, the state, they had absolutely no ability to impose those fines, and they could not collect those fines. So if you as a business owner paid that fine, you could try to get it back, but good luck. And if you took them to court, good luck. So we told every business owner that was fined, do not pay that fine. As a matter of fact, we had a county clerk that he stepped up and he said, if because at first that we didn't know, then didn't have to pay the fine. He had said, you got 100 years to pay this fine. Like, that
Wow.
was the end. That was the end around. That was the workaround. But that's because we were developing relationships, and everybody knew what was happening during COVID was wrong. It was communism. It was straight up out of the Marxist playbook. It was color revolution in every single regard in those places that were subjected in those businesses. And you can't, like, okay, well, most of the county didn't have to go, or they were deemed essential. Any business that had to be subjected to what they were was awful. They were subjected to communism, and that wasn't right. So that, to kind of answer your question there, that's how we were handling it. And what we recommend to businesses is, like I was telling you, get their contact list going so that they can have immediate response teams when law enforcement shows up, because they're cowards. And if they know they're in the wrong, or even if they think that they're in the right, but you are speaking to them in the way that I just articulated with you, they don't want to go down that road, because they know that you're not just going to go away. You're not just going to bend the knee. They know you're going to file a lawsuit against them. They know that it's going to be successful because this is what you're telling them. And they'll have known this as well. And that's what the AGOA's mission is. When we go into a town, is to say, here are the, these are the laws, the Supreme Court decisions that affect you. These are the parts of the Constitution that affect you and what you're doing as a public servant. And in those crisis situations like you're referring to, with that Jim and, and others that had to deal and contend with what they were, just horrible conditions. These are the tools that you have to pull out in order to be successful, to avoid it. And where do we get to avoid people doing that with the pandemic? There are millions of us like but where we're distracted each and every day. We're distracted by a whole wide array of things, including international and national and state level topics. I always tell everybody, there are so many chess pieces on the board. You are one of them. And as much of your time as they can take off the board, they have that win. We have to make sure that we are using our time as effectively and productively as we can. The tens and tens of millions of us that are out there, we have to make sure we are understanding and realizing we can't give into our inclinations, which is to scatter and chase like squirrels, right? We have to stay focused in on what is happening local. If we do that, you will prevent a pandemic from ever happening again. And I'm going to be brutally, honest and, and blunt with you. That's the way we have to do it. And people all over the country are failing us. And I'm talking about patriots and Americans, Republicans, conservatives, Christians, church going people that rather than being focused on what is right in front of them and what I just described to you, we did in a matter of weeks. Anybody can do it if you're going to pay attention local.
I guess knowledge is the true key here.
It really is. And you've got to make it succinct and actionable for people, because everybody has different levels of, acumen and ability to be able to understand and grasp it and how to use it. But everybody has to have willingness to be able to learn and step outside of their comfort zone. For example, today, one of the things that I created, that I put in front of as many of the towns that I possibly could, was knowing what Antifa did, Black Lives Matter did to us in 2020 with the NGOs and, all the other money that was coming from the Democratic National Committee that we know was being funneled to them, George Soros, what they did, to completely destroy our communities in 2020, and what they're trying to do now again. What I put in front of them was a template on how to stop these people. And, I just put my messages out to everybody today. And, it's tens and tens of thousands of people that I'll get this out to. And I'll say, the way we stop these riots and these protests right now are by having groups of men going out, and it can be groups of strong women too, but you have to make sure those women are protected. You have to have strong men going out into the community. And where these protesters are, you have to be willing to sit down and have a conversation and listen to them. Now, what we uncovered during COVID with Antifa and Black Lives Matter was a lot of these people were of altered mind, with whether it may be alcohol or drugs or both. So it was going to be impossible for us to have a conversation with them. But at the very least, we could familiarize ourselves with who they were, and what they were inclined to do wherever we would run into them. And what we got to do with the strong men there is to be willing to sit and listen and have a conversation with them, be compassionate, and say, look, I'm hoping you're going to listen to me now. I want to say some things, and I'm asking you to listen to me and give me a moment of time. And if you speak to them in a way where you're not demeaning them or demoralizing them, where you're actually talking to them like you would your friend, that's how it starts. We got to create those bridges. And even if it goes awry, what we have to do is we have to pray over them. We have to pray for them. We have to pray with them. We have to ask them, hey, is it okay if we come together? And, would you mind, if we, put our arms around one another? We may disagree, but pray. And in that moment, what God does is miraculous. And I've seen it happen, Riscalla, over and over and over again. I've done this in some very, very, very serious settings, in serious situations. I was down in January 6th, down in D.C. in 2021. So that was my role, was, when I was there to do that. But also here in 2020, it was very violent, and we had curfews set in, we had travel bans put in, we had roads blocked. Where have you ever heard of roads being blocked and stores being blocked off, malls being blocked off, the entire town being shut down because you had a terrorist organization doing what they were doing? You never heard of that. And so that is part of the process with us as everyday individuals, because if we could find common ground and get people to see one another, that's why we become, people want to say, because there's so many parts of the country that are wonderful, and they're doing a great job. And typically it is your smaller communities, but even conservatives and Republicans, we spoke about this the other day, they can become overzealous and go overboard. And typically, usually, they are the ones that go too far and start operating unconstitutionally. But where people know each other, where there's a familiarity, even if that's with public servants, and especially with public servants and the courts and the law enforcement, when you create that, build that trust. There was some research done that during COVID, those areas that weren't really impacted at all, it was because there was the sharing of information, the sharing of knowledge. They weren't burying it. They weren't stifling all that. And there were relationships between the people in that community and the public servants. They realized that they shouldn't be doing this to these people. Not only that they couldn't constitutionally, but from a morality standpoint, they shouldn't be doing it.
Well, I very much, I like your ideas. I've just run into, I don't know how you would describe them, hardcore cops, I guess you would describe them, that even though and you tell them, hey, listen, you're violating my so-and-so right, depending upon what it is. I don't care. We're going to do it anyway, because they know they can get away with it. You may be able to file a suit, but you're going to have to go through hell before all that happens. That's what I was saying earlier. I want to tell you that I give you kudos for standing up because you put yourself in a position where you could be very easily retaliated against. And people could perceive you, people in whether it's a commission or a board or whatever, perceive you as an enemy, because, oh my God, he's going to come and talk to Lucy and he's going to fill her head with all kinds of ideas, and oh my God, we're not going to be able to do this, or we're not going to be able to, follow what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Oh yeah. It's, when God gives you a mission, it's a blessing. And that he would have belief and trust and faith in you to go out there and do that. It's how do you not answer that call?
Well, I'm with you, my friend.
And I do want to walk it back to just the law enforcement question that you had. The way that you will stop that is you have to be preemptive. You have to work in a preventative way. And the way you do that is you start developing those relationships and share that information with the public servants who are the law enforcement bosses. If you have a street cop out there, and I'm going to tell you this is universally true. Law enforcement, they have courage to the extent that they feel like they will be backed up by the courts, not allowing them to be prosecuted, the district attorney coming after them, or whomever it might be. Other than that, they operate in a capacity of self-preservation. They will protect themselves. The things law enforcement are concerned about are their families, their retirements, their pensions, and keeping their job. Universally, that is true. Now, there are some of those members of law enforcement that are very, very good and operate in an ethical way, in a constitutional way, always regarding everybody's rights. There are others that don't. No one hates a bad cop more than a good cop. That is also universally true. So what we've got to understand is that all of these people they're put at risk with what a bad cop does. You don't allow the bad cop to do the things that he does by creating the system that he can't get away with it. And the way you create that system is by fostering and nurturing relationships with each and every one of the public servants that work with him, above him, and that are in charge of him or her. And what you will see is that begrudgingly, that law enforcement, who is that corrupt, will change and alter his behavior, her behavior, because they have to. And if there are any that are remaining that are going to continue to do the things that they're doing to hurt the people, they know there's a huge target on their back. We are not where we were before. And I'm going to tell you right now, law enforcement was protected by conservatives, or bad law enforcement behavior was praised by conservatives and Republicans and Christians. I'll never forget when I would talk about law enforcement doing bad things, and Democrats and liberals would say, no, they're public servants never do anything bad. And you're like, okay.
Right. Sure.
And then Black Lives Matter came along, right? And no kings came along now. But we have, but you have, the conservatives, Republicans, the Christians, who would say, we want law and order in our town, right? That would be the guys, that would be what they would sell you on, right? Your safety. It's for your safety. And in Republicans and conservatives and Christians still to this day are responsible for those members of law enforcement that are corrupt, because members of law enforcement become completely overzealous because they're being affirmated and validated with everything that they're doing, no matter what level of civil rights or criminality they may be engaging in. They're being applauded for it.
I'm looking. I had a video. I was going to play a video if I could find it, but I can't find it, of me in front of the Palm Beach County commissions. I don't see it. So I was one who went before the commissions, and I asked them basically, who gave you the right to regulate my breathing? Who, a couple of other things I don't recall, but that was one of them. I also told them that I have a granddaughter who is autistic, and that they required that and she was only 4 at the time, they required them to wear this mask. And I said, I can't get her to wear a happy birthday hat. How do you expect me to get her to wear a mask? If she doesn't wear a mask, are you going to arrest her? Are you going to report her to Department of Children and Families? Are you going to take her from her family? What are you going to do? And they were literally 2 of them, not all of them, but 2 of them. They were up there, and you could tell there was like, they were laughing almost, but they weren't laughing out loud. They were but you could see it was like funny to them. The whole thing was. I so badly I wanted to leave them the podium and go up there and show them a couple of things, but anyway, my issue with the whole deal was they had the cops backing them up as well. So they were saying, in order for you to go in and speak to the commissioners, you have to have a mask on. Well, I already had an exemption, and I have PTSD, and they said, well, if you can't handle the mask, in order to go into the room where the commissioners were, you had to wear a mask. Well, if you can't handle the mask, then you can stay out here and we can put you on video. I said, no, I want to see them face to face. I want to look in their eye, each one of them. And so they coerced me to wear a mask. I had a severe panic attack. The one police officer was going to call an ambulance. I said, don't call an ambulance. I'm going to see this through. And so I got there at I think it was 9 or 10 in the morning when they first started. They didn't call me till like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They purposely kept putting me off and off and off and off in hopes that, because a lot of people left, they said, oh, this is crazy. They're never going to call me, and they leave. So then when they finally got to me and I placed my complaint with them, it was like spitting into the wind. And it was very, very irritating, because these people were 100% responsible for a couple of businesses that I was dealing with on a personal level going out. Um, I didn't know the gym guy, but the gym guy was there that day, testifying to them after he'd been arrested for nothing more than opening up your business, for God's sake. Oh, well, we can't have all these people, congregating inside of a building. Okay, so we did it outside where it's fresh air and, yeah, I still got, I'm still pissed. I still want to do something to them. But what can you do?
When those things are going on, if they ever happen again, you have to have the small businesses connected by market category, but also by geography. And it'll be two separate, associations that'll be a part of, because geography, obviously, you have to have people that could come over and respond to them immediately. These people know that they're in the wrong, but when they feel like they can isolate you and target you, they're going to do everything. They're going to continue to try to get away with it until it reaches, the tipping point, critical mass, which is what it did in those communities that were being subjected to things that you're talking about. And here, where I'm from, here in Western New York, which was really bad. So you have to have them, be able to video record everything, but you have to be ready to file a lawsuit against the individual who did what they did immediately.
Can you file a lawsuit against the commissioner? I thought they were inured and indemnity. I can't think of the right word, but
indemnified. Well, they are indemnified. They are insured, but they also will cite that they have qualified immunity.
That's it, immunity, yeah.
Or absolute immunity. Nobody has absolute immunity. Nobody has qualified immunity. What they're going to do to try to invalidate your position is to just simply say that, right? Because you're going to have most people that go, oh, okay, because they don't know any better. Well, he's got absolute immunity. I can't do anything. No public servant, even judges, have absolute immunity. And, even with the president, there is no absolute immunity. I mean, there's a huge amount of immunity that was just granted to him by the U.S. Supreme Court, right? Operating in the capacity that he needs to. But if you commit a crime as a public servant, law enforcement, you can go after them civilly, but you can also go against them for constitutional violations, which is a big one. Article 78 here in New York State is what they refer to it as. But you can also go after them criminally. But here's the issue, right? This is what you're talking about. You need to protect yourself, so that's not going to happen. That's why you get yourself involved with the association, your neighbors, and your video recording, and you're arming yourself with information and knowledge. You're not going to know what to say exactly and specifically to them. And, you're hoping that that's going to dissuade them from doing what they're doing. But if they're going to continue to do what they're doing, you have to be able to file lawsuits with criminal charges. And that's going to be very difficult. That is one of the big things that AGOA is trying to contend with right now, because our courts, our local courts, our New York State Supreme Courts, and then the appellate courts, also the FBI, the DOJ, which you were referencing in your monologue, and the U.S. Supreme Court, as well as law enforcement at every level, they are failing the people. And if a public servant does something like COVID, they should have all been prosecuted criminally right away. But there weren't the mechanisms. There's not the mechanisms in play to be able to do that. So how do you see that through? And that's not something I want to share with you here right now on the radio, just in case somebody's listening, because, a lot of people, unfortunately, they take the processes that the AGOA created, that, I built and created, and they use them For example, Washington State, one of the things that we do is proclamations, resolutions, and declarations within towns. Washington State, after I posted something on one of the YouTubers that did it, they post about how you go through and handle these things to be able to, so the state can't force you to do things that are unconstitutional. The state, the legislature, and the Senate literally put a bill in and passed it, saying that towns and towns and villages and cities could not pass resolutions or declarations, and if they did, they would be in violation of the law, which means it was a crime. So where we have to get with AGOA and where we are, there is a plan. I want to assure you that there is a plan. Will it be effective? I don't know, but there is a plan that if the set of circumstances arises, what you were speaking about, where they are going to arrest you, that won't be able to happen. And even if it does, there would be nearly, it wouldn't be instant or immediate, but it would be as quick as possible, the remedy for that. And then to be able to hold for you, then to know the processes, to be advised of the processes that you are going to be able to, hold that public servant accountable and get back to your indemnified thing. And these public servants being bonded, which you made a great point, and this is one of the things the AGOA is working on. We want to make sure, and this is part of what we were talking about with property taxes earlier, and the different things that are involved with the local municipality and what they need to try to fund. But each public servant would have to pay for their own insurance policy. So if they violate somebody's civil rights, there would be you can't have a situation in place where, because that's what the Democrats will do. Then they will weaponize it. You have to make sure that there are assurances and insurance policies in place, so there can't just be these just reckless and frivolous claims and contentions, because they'll just go ahead and inundate the system, which is what they're showing they're doing right now. But there has to be a vetting process to make sure it's legitimate. And if it is legitimate, then the people need to know the process, rather than the process that exists now, which is going to try to stymie them at every corner and then ultimately try to bankrupt them because of the way the attorneys that these towns employ. They're usually state level employees or wide attorneys firms, like here in Western New York, it's Phillips Lytle or Phillips and Thias. And they know exactly what to do to protect you, and you don't going into that lawsuit. So there has to be protections and processes put in place for the people to be able to know what their rights are, to be able to do in the event that a public servant violates their rights. And what that does is inherently, when those public servants know that it's going to have to come out of their pocket and there's going to be consequences, guess what goes down? The instances of that they're going to violate your civil rights. And what are they going to do? They're going to educate themselves, because now they know, rather than that big insurance policy that doesn't affect them at all, it's going to impact them directly.
The insurance policy is the bond. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
So there was this idea we were going to work at, I don't know the right terminology. We were going to revoke the bond for these commissioners that were, breaking are causing us problems. I guess the best way to put it. So we were going to revoke the bonds, but we never were able to do that. Were you ever successful in being able to revoke the bond? From what I understand, they have to be bonded in order to hold a public office. If they're not bonded, then they can't hold a public office. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So have you ever been successful in yanking the bond, so to speak?
Well, there was this one organization that was called Bonds for the Win. And they came into prominence in the forefront late 2020, early 2021, I believe. And essentially what they were trying to do was say, hey, if they don't, find the bond, if you find the bond, then, which insurance company it's from, then you're going to be able to file a claim against that bond and that insurance policy.
Okay,
Or like you
wait
said,
a second. Wait a second. So I want to make sure I understand correctly. So let's say Commissioner Smith has violated my rights. So I want to file a suit against him. So what I do is I find out the insurance company that's insuring him and file a suit against the insurance company.
no, that's what Bonds for the Win was saying that you do.
Uh-huh.
And I have yet to been able to, I can't say, because there are some people that maintain that that is absolutely fact and true. I'm going to say that that's not been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to bring a civil lawsuit against a public servant, you would file that within your state Supreme Court of your county, or whatever they refer to it. It's another name in some of the states, but here in New York State, it's called the Supreme Court of the county. So the state Supreme Court of the county, you would file that suit within there against that individual or the town. But what's going to happen is that individual is bonded, the town is bonded, has the insurance policy. So the insurance policy, if you win, is going to pay that out, like you said, and people are paying the insurance policy. So it has no direct bearing or impact on them, which is one of the contributing factors as to why in those areas where public servants are operating in a corrupt manner, like my area, and it sounds like the area that you're in or we're in, that they know there's no personal accountability. They have no fear because they're insulated and protected from any from any personal liability. And that's where I'm saying that we have to make sure that they do have personal accountability and liability, because once they realize their neck is on the line, guess what?
I agree. That will change the picture. But and how do we do that? How do we assure that they are personally responsible in doing that?
Well, that's the question. We with the AGOA, no public. What they'll tell you is this. When you talk to law enforcement, and when you talk to district attorneys or even U.S. attorneys and the FBI, what they will tell you is that even though this person absolutely categorically committed crime, if these are these are the legitimate excuses that we've received from members of law enforcement and these attorneys that are supposed to be prosecuting these people. If we go after these people, you've got the evidence, you've got the affidavits, you've got the videos, here's the penal code, we know they broke the law. Well, if we go after this person, it's going to deter other people from running for public office. And it's an insane position to take, but it's legitimately what they will say. So you're going to have that same excuse wielded by them. Well, if we're personally liable everybody's personally liable. Why should you be the exception? Because guess what? If I'm personally liable for having to drive my car on the street, then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive responsibly. I'm going to make sure I'm following the laws that are out there.
And the other side of the coin is if you don't, then you have to face the punishment. And that's where the difference is.
And that's where you have to bring that personal liability and that insurance. And remember when I was saying earlier that you have it spelled out for whichever position it is, exactly what their duties and responsibilities are. Because once these people understand, it's not my job to decide who's essential or who's not essential. It's not my job to go, throw this woman to the ground or kick this man out for not wearing a mask. Once they start to understand that they cannot engage in that type of overreach, then you're going to see that go away. You're going to see public servants start operating the capacity that they should be, not just at this level, brother, because the level of corruption that there is with public servants goes way bigger than this. Maybe when you're talking about the illegals and how much money they're making with that, when you're talking about the contracts that they have, when you're talking about the bonding that they have, the contracts that they're issuing, when you're talking about, the property tax foreclosures in the 12 states that they do that, and then the counties that they engage in property tax foreclosures, the amount of theft that these individuals engage in, it's incredible. So what you're going to start to see is all that correct itself and rectify itself.
I lost you.
And that's where the AGOA comes in.
You faded out.
Oh, that's where the AGOA comes in.
Yeah.
We are trying to educate as many people as possible, put as many eyes on the ground with all of this as we possibly can.
So if somebody wants to reach you, how do they reach you?
They can email me at usaAGOA@gmail.com. So usaAGOA@gmail.com.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't want to be redundant on this thing, but with the commissioners that I ran into is, sadly, the sheriff was right behind him. The sheriff was backing him up. We had sent a letter to the sheriff saying, listen, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what it said, but basically is you took an oath to the Constitution and you're breaking your oath. You're violating people's rights. You should not be in a place where you're enforcing people to wear a mask. That's not what we hired you for. That's not a crime. It's a, what was it? I can't remember what it was called, but it's not a crime. So it's the sheriff as well. If you have a constitutional sheriff, that would make all the difference in the world. Have you had any conversations with sheriffs?
So constitutional sheriff is a misnomer, and it's one of those things that I like to call a distraction. They do have the Constitutional Sheriff's Association of America, and those gentlemen, trying to operate in the most constitutional capacity that they can, I applaud them. I absolutely do. But inherently, every single it's kind of redundant because every single public service sheriff should be constitutional, right? They should be operating in constitutional capacity. We kind of want to put these, like you had mentioned in your monologue about Trump and, being upset with him. So many, but then there are people that are out there that, are they the zealots, are they almost like that cult-like mentality where they will support Donald Trump? Now, I'm a Donald Trump supporter, and I believe you are. But here's the difference with people like you and I feel like the vast majority of the country, we are able to discern and call somebody out, whoever they are. We don't care who you are, and just whoever you are, do the right thing and do right by people. So with the constitutional sheriffs, just by taking their oath, every public servant is supposed to be constitutional. And what we're looking for are messiahs. And that's not the answer. That will never be the answer. When our country was started, there, and so many of those amazing individuals, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, the endless list of names that were there that wrote all of these incredible messages and just all these insightful things because they'd experienced it firsthand and they knew what to look out for. But they said the reason why the country was so protected was because initially everybody knew their rights, everybody, and they knew the Constitution backwards and forwards, and you couldn't get away with doing something unconstitutional. Those areas of the country that have people in that area that operate constitutionally, those areas, even though the other people won't even realize it, are protected just by virtue of the fact that those people are there ready and willing to hold the public servant accountable. So constitutional sheriff is that nice thought. Hey, they're going to be able to take care of all these things that are unconstitutional. The reality is nobody supersedes the people. Everybody always says there's three branches of government. If you want to say there's three branches of government, that's fine, but they all operate under the people.
That's true.
And that's each and every individual. Like you had alluded to earlier, if we're educated, if we're informed, if we have that knowledge, you are a weapon. You are dangerous. And they will stop. That member of law enforcement that did to you what they did, they won't do it because they know what's coming. And then you improve the quality of the public servant. Then you improve the quality of the law enforcement. You improve the quality of the attorneys. You improve the quality of the judges. It elevates everybody, but it has to start locally in order to do that.
And I agree. If we're going to make a true change, a permanent change, it has to be from the bottom up. It's not going to work from the top down. And it has to be a reconciliation of the system. And in order to reconcile, you have to have the people in the system understanding what their responsibilities truly are. I'm in total agreement with you, and I appreciate people like you that are going out and doing what you're doing. Every little bit counts. I have another friend of mine who is literally educating. He's had conversations with senators, educating them on the Constitution, the Constitution of the United States, of the government, and then the Constitution of the particular state that they're in. It's a long and burdensome and very difficult and tedious fight. But as long as we have people like you and this other friend of mine that I'm thinking of, there's hope there. I got to tell you, the 4 years that the Biden administration and the 8 years that Obama was in, I had such hopeless feelings. Oh my gosh, the country is just gone. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. And I thought, we're never going to have another real election. These people that happen to be in the places of authority now have it so tied up and so tight that they're only going to put in who they want. And I'm not so sure if Trump is not what they wanted. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm watching all of this happen, and today we had this celebration of the 250th birthday of the Army, and they're showing off all of these different pieces of equipment. And it reminded me of something that a communist, I'm not calling him a communist, you guys, okay? But it just reminds me of something that a communist would do. They would whip out the military and have them marching in front of everybody to show off the military. So I don't know. I didn't think that was the greatest thing in the world. If people want to, see our military, then I'm sure we have museums and stuff like that. You can go there and take a look all you want. But marching down the middle of the street, this big old parade of militaristic equipment, some of it from way back, some of it from World War I, just kind of showing the military off, I guess. But I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. It's something that I would think that would not be happening in our country, even though now that I think about it, I think there was a couple of parades when I was a child. I think I do remember a couple. Now that I think about it, I think we did have something like that. But it's been many years. I mean, it's probably 50, 60 years now since anything like that went down. And I'm sure the liberals are probably really roasting on this. Oh, my God, did you see the dictator, the king? He brought out his military. Oh, God help us. Anyway. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. And once again, give your email out. Let's get that out. Make sure people get it.
I just wanted to, I think with Trump, with the military, with the Army, it's 250th anniversary.
Right.
And you got to remember that Trump is one of those people who there's the pageantry and there's the ceremony, but there's importance to it. And when you get rid of tradition, or you downplay things that make us America, it's you that's where you slip into where we were in 2020. So I think honoring, I don't disagree with some of your points on the parade. However, coming from the other side and looking at it, I think that there was a lot of value in it, and just alone for the military saying that, man, nobody has appreciated or recognized us when there's structure and formula and expectations. That's where a society can function in a really good way. If you start getting rid of everything that was your tradition, like funerals, right? You couldn't go to funerals during COVID. There's so many things you couldn't go to. Well, communism is much easier to take over then, right? If you can't go to church, if there's no spirituality, you don't have that relationship with God, which is what they tried to create, right? And they tried to put us all on an island, and all those traditions washed away. That's where you really open the door for communism. And I think that parts of the country that stayed true to their tradition, they fared much better than the others. So, I know that for me, I thought it was important for that parade to take place for those reasons, to honor those men and women, but also the Army for 250 years,
Amen.
But the email address is, and thank you, I really appreciate the time, Riscalla, on your program here, and thank you for everything that you're doing for everybody and sharing this knowledge, because people need it. It always ebbs and flows, no matter what. There are always going to be evil people trying to do evil things. You never expunge it or wash it away. And I tell people that. It's like,
I wish we could. Yeah, but the reality is it's always going to be there.
You're sitting on your laurels right now because you think Donald Trump's going to take care of everything. That's just not going to be the case.
Yeah.
The email address is usaAGOA@gmail.com.
usaAGOA@gmail.com.
And anybody can, if you want to volunteer, if whoever you are, you will be anonymous. Your name does not get out there. You will be protected. That is one of the biggest priorities for the AGOA. Also, if you are somebody that has a complaint about a public servant, again, if you want to remain anonymous with that because you're fearful of retribution, you will remain anonymous. It's much more difficult to handle your case that way. There's still, there are steps that we can take to try to modify and correct what has happened to you in a general way or a generic way. Unfortunately, a lot of people, that is a very real threat. But, those would be who could reach out to me and that I would be able to help effectively.
Awesome. Pete, God bless you, my friend. God protect you and give you the necessary tools to carry on to his glory.
No, I appreciate that, Riscalla. Amen. And God bless you and your family and, any members of your family. I know that we've spoken about that, but, specific cases, which I don't want to talk about here, but everybody in your life, God bless all of them and your mission. Take care.
I appreciate you, my friend. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Weekend, what's left of it. God bless.
Sounds good. God bless.
All right, we're going to take one last very, very short break, and we'll come back and finish it up real quick.
You're listening to the Red Pill Reality Show with your host, Riscalla.
Come with me if you want to live. Stay here. I'll be back.
You have asked, are we happy? Are we happy and effective? Consultation with leading experts in the field makes it perfectly clear that we are all now programmed for perfect happiness, perfect happiness, perfect happiness.
want us to hear. They think we can't handle the truth.
If you feel you are not properly sedated, call 348-844 immediately. Failure to do so may result in prosecution for criminal drug evasion.
See that the humans remain entertained until the end.
Control. All objects for the body. Control. Created in the image of man. By the masses. Control. For the masses. Control.
We're back. Hope you didn't go too far because we have more interesting and thought-provoking information for you coming up on the Red Pill Reality Show.
All right. A lot of useful information. It's nice to know that we have somebody out there that's working to help us. You know, I'm not very happy with what I'm seeing going on. I think I've pretty well expressed that. We keep giving money to Ukraine. We keep giving money to Israel. We find all this fraud and all this abuse and don't seem to want to do anything about it, just add more to it. I don't know. Not. It seems to me, and I know it's redundant, and I apologize, but it's just circling in my mind. It seems to me that the focus right now is all about immigration, and that's important. I'm not saying that's not important, but there's other things. Why is Fauci still running around free? That man is responsible for millions of deaths. Millions. Nothing's happened to him. And then I think about 4 representatives assassinated. I don't know if all 4 of them. I know 2 of them and possibly 3, maybe all 4. I haven't checked any on the latest, but so is this an attempt to keep those who speak out, because if all 4 of them spoke out against the Democratic Party with regard to having the government pay illegal aliens. They voted against it. So is this a message? If you vote against us, we're going to literally come kill you? I'm telling you, people, more and more, you need to be aware of your surroundings. And I have had 2 different people tell me that through their intelligence agencies that they listen to, that July the 4th may become one of the worst holidays we've ever experienced. And all of this, no, not all of it, but the majority of it, 99% of it, was we allowed all these people in here. That was a setup. Millions and millions and millions of people coming in. You can't tell me that there is no way on this God's green earth that you could tell me, oh, I had no idea they would cause this kind of a problem. And nobody's being held responsible. I go all the way back to 9/11. I remember during 9/11, so many, quote, mistakes were made, and not a single person, not a one, had a hand slap. And I think about it, Afghanistan, billions of dollars of our equipment. Not a hand slap, not a letter of reprimand, nothing. As a matter of fact, I recall Joe Biden or whoever the hell he was. Oh, we did a great job. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the job we did. Wow. And now, watching what's happening, we have got his head stuck up so far his behind the governor of California and the mayor. Oh, these are peaceful protests. Come on, people. How many of you have heard them say repeatedly, these are peaceful protests? These are mostly peaceful. Yes, there's a few, there's a couple. The freaking city's burning down. There's a couple. And people don't see it. I saw a post today that was about Trump is causing all of this problem. He should never have sent any of the troops in. There's no business for them to be there. Never mind that they were going after people like, I don't know, rapists, murderers, thieves, carjackers. And then you have Newsom saying, arrest me. I don't give a damn. I care about my community. You care about your community? You dipstick. You care about your community. Look at your community. You have to be careful where you walk because there's feces all over the sidewalk. Care about your community. What a joke. I hope and I just pray that people will become more and more educated and then active. And Pete was an excellent example of he's not a super guy. He's just an ordinary guy. But he's stepping in the fray to help bring justice, to help make us a better place. They talk about making us great again. I don't know if we're ever going to be great again at the rate that we're going, because we take one step forward and then it's like 3 or 4 steps backwards. I'm very concerned that we're going to get pulled into a war. And if we do, Russia will get in the war. And if Russia gets in the war, China will get in the war. And then our allies will get into the war. If people really knew what it's like to be in a war, I think they would avoid it at all possible, in any possible way. They would avoid it. Because your greatest nightmare doesn't even come to the tip of the iceberg. When you're facing a reality where you're walking along, talking to your friend, you hear a smack, and you look over and your friend's head is gone. I really believe that what they say is 10 million isn't 10 million. It's more like 20 million. And they say that half of them are criminals. What if we have sleeper cells? And I know we do. Waiting to be activated in all over cities, all over the place. All of this, thank you to the last administration, because they're the majority of the problem. They're the ones who allowed the majority of these people in here. They're the ones who paid these. What a slap in the face. I take it personally. What a slap in the face. I'm an immigrant. I had to go through procedures to become a legal citizen. And it cost my family money to be able to do that. Meanwhile, you let anybody come in through the border and then pay them. And what you pay them, in many cases, is more what you pay the people who have paid into Social Security all their lives. What a slap in the face. All right. I'm going to cut it a couple of minutes early tonight, guys. I got to tell you, I'm not happy with what's going on. my hopes are like diminished. I don't like the idea of the Gaza. I don't like the idea of, and I understand, but I still don't like the idea of the artificial intelligence. I don't like the idea of continuously giving money to Ukraine. I don't like the idea of what's going on in Israel and how Israel is all pumped up and ready to go to war because they know they're going to have us to back them up. I don't like the idea of being dragged into another war. I really believed we were going to start seeing some peace, but it doesn't look that way. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. But it certainly doesn't look that way. Working on getting some new guests on next week. Can't tell you who it is yet because he hasn't agreed, but if he does, it'd be very interesting. Very, very interesting. We'll see you in a week. God bless. Be well.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, 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 take the red. You stay in Wonderland. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.